Okay, so in last video, we talked about the first way guiding us to interpret information, that is expectancy. So sometimes we interpret certain information based on what we are expected to see. And in this video, we're going to talk about the other two ways guiding us, getting our interpretation of the information. The first one is schema or schemata. We have talked about the meaning, what is a schemata, when we were discussing the organization step. But now I will talk about the four types of schemata we could use to interpret information. And the last way to interpret information is to make inferences. So let's start from here, schemata. So we've said that the step of interpretation of information is a process where we are comparing what we see in the reality, what we perceive in the reality, with our existing knowledge in our mind. And if we found that these our perceptions kind of match our knowledge, our schemata in our mind, and then we figure it out, we understand what is going on here. That is the second way for us to interpret the information, by using the schemata, by using our knowledge, something we are familiar with. So specifically, there are four types of schemata we commonly use to make sense of the information, to interpret the information. So I want to kind of, share a story with you guys, or describe a scenario with you guys to illustrate these four types of schemata. So let's say today is the anniversary. I have been married with my husband for 5 years. So we decided to go out for dinner together. And my husband, he asked me to pick one restaurant in Vienna. So I took out my phone and I kind of checked the long list of restaurants located in Vienna. I'm having such a hard time to pick the right restaurant. I'm kind of debating. And then I began to think about myself to make a final decision which restaurant I want to go. So I know that I'm allergic to seafood. So I'm gonna avoid any seafood restaurant, such as sushi and some Italian restaurant. And I know I have a sweet tooth. I really like dessert. So I'll pay close attention to the restaurants with very good review for dessert. So finally, I was able to pick up a restaurant, a Spanish restaurant in Vienna. So in this situation, I am using the knowledge I know about myself to pick the right restaurant. So I'm using something called a schemata to interpret which restaurant is good for me, which one is not. So in other words, self-schemata is what you know about yourself, what you like, what you don't like, etc. Your knowledge about yourself. So this is self-schemata, or the knowledge about ourselves, would reflect people's view of themselves and guide them how to process information, how to make the correct decision. So we finally kind of went to the restaurant, and before we entered into the restaurant, we stood at the gate to be seated, to be greeted. And then when someone kind of came out to lead us to the table, then we ordered the drink, the food, and etc. So that is a routine if we want to dine out in a restaurant. So first we got to be waiting there to be seated. And then we look at the menu and order what we want. And that is the second type of schemata. We call it event schemata. We've touched it when we were talking about organization. So that is, given an activity, given an event, your knowledge about what actions you should take and following which order. So in other words, this event schemata refers to our knowledge about the protocol or the procedure given a certain event. So with this event schemata, we know what we should do if we want to dine out in a restaurant. And then we were seated, and here comes a waitress, and she is quite nice, and she smelled a lot. So I don't hold any gender prejudice, but my impression is that females, the waitress, is usually very good at taking care of people. So I would expect to have a good time dining in this restaurant because we have a female waitress to take care of us. So here I'm using the third type of schemata, the role schemata, to interpret this information. That is, my knowledge, my understanding about gender tells me that actresses are better at taking care of people. So I expected to have a good time here. That is the third type of schemata. That is our knowledge, our understanding about a group of people. It could be an ethnicity group. It could be a cultural group. It could be any group, but it got to be a group of people. Okay, not a particular person. It got to be a group of people, such as males, females, Asian group, senior students, graduate students, etc. And sometimes we call it a stereotype. And turn out, let's get back to the story. And turn out that me and my husband, we did have a good time. Everything is perfect. The food, the drink, the restaurant vibe, everything is just so wonderful. But if one of you was kind of dining, was sitting with us, you may be like, hold on. You said it is your anniversary, but your husband doesn't have any gift for you. It is so strange. Well, I wouldn't be surprised because I have a great understanding about my husband. He is that kind of guy who knows nothing about romantic. So in this situation, I'm using my knowledge, my schemata for my husband, this particular person, to interpret this information. And the result of using this schemata is I wouldn't be surprised. I expect that because I know that he is a kind of a nerd or a geek. Okay, so in this latter situation, I'm using something called person schemata to interpret this information, this situation. So person schemata is our knowledge we hold towards a particular person, someone we know, such as your family members, your one of your friends, or your girlfriend or boyfriend. So this person schemata got to be towards a particular person, whereas this role schemata is something you hold for a particular group of people. Okay, so that are the 4 types of schemata, and I hope it is clear. So if you have a good understanding of these 4 schemata, and here is our online post assignment here. So I would like you guys to kind of exercise this schemata things. So I'm gonna ask you guys to make up a scenario or a skit where you could use all these 4 types of schemata: self schemata, event, role, and person schemata. And please note that it doesn't have to be in this order, right? So make up the scenario like what I just did when I explained this schemata stuff. Okay, so for this role schemata or stereotype, let me tell you a bit more about it. Well, we develop our knowledge, our understanding towards a group of people, especially for a cultural group of people. So where does our stereotype come from? So I'm gonna show you guys a video clip from YouTube, and this video did a very good job explaining a large part of our schemata towards cultural groups actually come from lots of Hollywood movies we see. So let's take a look at this role schemata. Please do not feel offended because this video touched on lots of ethnicity and culture groups. Just kind of take it as a way to get to know more about the impact coming from the Hollywood movies. Again, please do not feel offended. Please pause here and come back when you finish that movie clip. Okay, welcome back. Let's get back to the scenario I just described to you guys. Let's say this time we were not lucky. We were waiting at the door, at the restaurant door, to be seated for like 1 hour. And both of us got really mad. And for this time, we have no idea what's going on here. We cannot figure out when nobody came out to greet us. So this is something we have no knowledge, or our knowledge is not sufficient to explain what's going on here. So in this situation, we began to use a survey to interpret this situation, that is making inferences or making attributions. That is, we want to make some guesses. We want to create explanations for others' comments or behaviors. So my husband, he's really a nice guy, and he would find, or he would come up with some legitimate reasons to explain this current situation. And he would be like, well, the staff must be very, very busy, and they must be taking care of other customers. So they didn't get a chance to greet us. So he thinks that this current situation is caused by some external factors, such as the restaurant is so popular, is so packed, everybody is really busy. So in this situation, he is making some external attributions. But I'm the mean person, and I would be like, come on, the staff must be really lazy in this restaurant. They must be sneaking somewhere and take a moment rest. So I'm making something called this internal attribution. I'm attributing this phenomenon to some internal causes, such as the lazy personalities, right? The employees themselves, they are reluctant to get back to work instead of something external. So again, the attribution is we are trying to come up with some causes for a situation or for one's behaviors. And we have external and internal. Let me give you another example for these two types of attributions. Let's say if someone is absent from my class and I'm really mean. So I would guess this person misses the class because he partied too much yesterday, or he slept over or whatever, or he just lazy, he didn't want to show up in the class. So in this situation, I'm attributing the cause of missing the class to someone's internal factors. But if I say, well, this person missed today's class because they bad weather, because they bad traffic, or some emergency situations. In this situation, the causes are external in the environment, are beyond one's control. So in this situation, I'm making the external attributions. So again, internal attributions refer to one's personalities, something within one's control, whereas external attributions go beyond one's controllabilities. Okay, so that is all I have to talk about for this perception topic. So we are going through 3 steps, and we have 3 ways for us to organize the information, 3 ways for us to interpret the information. And for schema, we have 4 types of schema, and inferences. We have 2 types of inferences. Also, I prepared really fun video below this lecture. If you want to watch it, check it out. It's called cross-check, cross-examination actually.